and welcome back to Penelope's Pitstop Story Time. Let's get started with a song. Tingalayo, come little donkey, come. Tingalayo, come little donkey, come. My donkey walk, my donkey talk, my donkey eat with a knife and fork. My donkey walk, my donkey talk, my donkey eat with a knife and fork. Tingalayo, come little donkey, come. Tingalayo, come little donkey, come. My donkey eat, my donkey sleep, my donkey kick out with two hind feet. My donkey eat, my donkey sleep, my donkey kick out with two hind feet. Tingalayo, come little donkey, come. Tingalayo, come little donkey, come. My donkey he, my donkey haw, my donkey sit on the kitchen floor. My donkey he, my donkey haw, my donkey sit on the kitchen floor. Tingalayo, come little donkey, come. Tingalayo, come little donkey, come. Now that was a silly tale about a donkey who really wants supper. Have you ever noticed how much of our lives is about food? We start each day with breakfast, then there's lunch, and in the evening, it's dinner time. In between, we might have snacks too. Do you have a favorite food? That sounds pretty tasty. I have an unusual one. It's called rhubarb. If you haven't heard of rhubarb before, it's the reddish, tart-tasting stem of a leafy bush. And that makes it a vegetable. However, most people bake it into pies or other desserts, treating it like it's a fruit. I think that's amazing. Can I tell you a secret? When I get a wee bit hungry, I get cranky. I do. And I can't think about anything else until I've had a meal. When I get impatient to eat, well, I often think about this nursery rhyme. Old Mother Hubbard went to the cupboard to fetch her poor dog a bone. But when she got there, the cupboard was bare, and so the poor dog had none. Some folks have empty tummies right now for many reasons. Maybe they can't afford to buy food, or they live far away from the nearest store and they don't have a way to get there, or they're simply too sick or frail to leave their homes. Perhaps like me, you're worried about whether they're getting regular meals to eat. That's because you understand how important it is that we help each person get the nourishment they need in whatever ways we can, big and small. I want you to know that right now, at this very moment, lots of people are working together, even if they have to stay 6 feet apart, to make sure that everyone has enough to eat. Now, your grown-ups can help you think of how best to share with others in your community. I'm just so glad to be here with thoughtful, caring you today. Let's make some music together now. I have a new instrument to show you. It's a type of scraper, like a whirro or a rasp, only flat. It makes a sound by dragging a stick across these ridges. Listen. You can make one at home with a water bottle and a pencil. It might be fun to test whether it sounds better to use a half-full water bottle, an empty one like this, or an all-the-way full one. While you're getting your water bottle and your pencil, I'm going to play you a little song. Mama's little baby loves shortening, Mama's little baby loves shortening bread. Mama's little baby loves shortening, Mama's little baby loves shortening bread. Put on the skillet, put on the lid, Mama's gonna make a little shortening bread. And that ain't all she's gonna do, Mama's gonna put on coffee too. Got your water bottle? Here we go. Mama's little baby loves shortening, Mama's little baby loves shortening bread. Mama's little baby loves shortening, Mama's little baby loves shortening bread. Now keep these close because we're going to use them again in the story I'm about to tell you. Our story for today is about an animal that got greedy with someone else's food. Once upon a time, there was a baker, from whose hat the rays of the sun were reflected in great splendor. Beyond the hat, the baker had nothing but a knife and a cooking stove of the kind that you, O best beloved, must particularly never touch because of the hot metal. One day, the baker mixed together flour and water and sugar and dried fruit and made a cake 2 feet across and 3 feet thick. It was a superior comestible. That's magic. Well, of course the baker was allowed to cook on the stove, and there the cake baked and baked until it was all done, golden brown, and it smelled most sentimental. And that turned out to be unfortunate, for the aroma of that cake traveled all the way around the island. Just when it was ready to eat, the rhinoceros appeared on the beach. The rhinoceros grunted forcefully, and the baker took the hint, shimmying up a palm tree and leaving that cake behind. The rhinoceros knocked over the stove so that the cake rolled out onto the sand. The rhinoceros speared it with its horn, tossed it up into the air, and ate it in one gulp, oh best beloved, and then strolled away, swishing its tail. When all was quiet once more, the rhinoceros was gone for good. Why, then the baker came down from the tree, righted the stove, and shouted in the direction that the rhinoceros had gone, "Them that takes cakes the baker bakes, makes dreadful, awful, regrettable mistakes." And there was a great deal more truth in that than you might think, because soon after, there was a heat wave on that island out in the Red Sea. In those early days, rhinoceros's skin buttoned up with 3 buttons, and it fit very tight. There were no wrinkles in it anywhere. Because it was sweltering on the island, the rhinoceros thought to remove the heavy skin and go for a swim. So down to the sea the rhinoceros went, oh best beloved, with not a care in the world, leaving its skin back on shore. Presently, the baker came along and found the skin. Picking it up, the baker grinned a gleeful smile and then dashed home to get a hatful of cake crumbs, for the baker never ate anything but cake and never swept up after. Returning to the beach with the hatful of cake crumbs, the baker scrubbed those crumbs into that skin and shook those crumbs into the skin and rubbed the crumbs into the skin until that skin was just as full of old, dry, stale, tickly cake crumbs as ever it could possibly hold. Then the baker shimmied on up a palm tree and waited for the rhinoceros to come out of the water and put the skin back on. And eventually the rhinoceros did just that. Buttoned up that skin. Something tickled. The rhinoceros tried to scratch, but that made it worse. The rhinoceros lay down and rolled on the sand. But the cake crumbs tickled worse still. The rhinoceros ran over to the tree where the baker was and rubbed against it. So much and so hard. Why, the skin got rubbed into great folds all over its body. And the baker had to hold on tight because the tree shook so. Well, the rhinoceros even rubbed the buttons off, oh best beloved, but that made no difference to the cake crumbs inside. They were as itchy as ever. And from that day to this, the rhinoceros has great folds in its skin and a very bad temper. And now you know it's all because of the cake crumbs inside. We've been sitting for a little bit, so let's stand for a while. Let's pretend we're having a guest, Cousin Carlos. Last evening, Cousin Carlos came. Last evening, Cousin Carlos came. Last evening, Cousin Carlos came just to show that he was here. He wiped his feet up on the mat. He wiped his feet up on the mat. He wiped his feet up on the mat just to show that he was here. He hung his hat upon a peg. He hung his hat upon a peg. He hung his hat upon a peg just to show that he was here. We fed him bread and a bowl of soup. We fed him bread and a bowl of soup. We fed him bread and a bowl of soup just to show that he was here. He washed the dishes and stacked them tall. He washed the dishes and stacked them tall. He washed the dishes and stacked them tall just to show that he was here. He pretended he was a great big bear. He pretended he was a great big bear. He pretended he was a great big bear just to show that he was here. He made a bow and he waved goodbye. He made a bow and he waved goodbye. He made a bow and he waved goodbye just to show that he'd been here. It's time to revisit our dollhouse now. I wanted to begin by answering a couple of questions. The first one was the name of my fairy. This is Nut Brown. Some of you also wanted to know about what book was on the bed. I don't know if you can see, but that book is Winnie the Pooh. We'll put it back on Grandma's bed. Okay, 5B of the Dollhouse segment. So as you might have guessed from the theme of our program today, we're going to be filling the kitchen of our dollhouse. Let's start with a table. We'll add some chairs. They like to sit right in front of the window where they can look outside. Grandma likes to watch the birds. And write down all the different birds that she sees. We do have a couple of things to put on the table. Little basket of fruit. And also, we have this cheese board with some cheese on it. Then we have this cabinet. You can see that one of our knobs is missing, but that's okay. Inside this cabinet are a bunch of little spoons and knives and forks. And there's also dishes. I want to talk about the dishes because you can see they're one color, blue, but they're speckled with white spots. This particular kind of dish is called enamelware. And Grandma has plates. And she also has bowls and smaller plates. On top of this cabinet is where Grandma keeps her flower vases. You can see they have pictures of flowers on them and a little pitcher that she can put water in. Now, the most important part of Grandma's kitchen is her cook stove. Much like the baker in our story might have had, only that baker's stove probably would have been smaller than this one. So there are these little lids. And the firebox in which you would put wood or coal, usually wood. This little place would be where bread might be baked or food that had already been cooked would be kept warm. And then this is the oven part here. If you're wondering about this pipe, that's called the flue. And that's where heat would have and smoke would have escaped from the stove so that it wouldn't fill up the kitchen and the house. Grandma has 4 little canisters like this that she keeps on top. And that's what she would have kept flour and sugar and things like coffee, tea, maybe even a little bit of rice. Whoops, lost a lid, we'll fetch that later. And then she's got herself some copper bowls. That way she can mix up her own cakes. Of course, she needs things to cook on the stove with. So the stove and these cooking pots would have all been made with cast iron. And that's how Grandma would have made the meals. Two more things. We've got a bucket. Your sharp eyes may have noticed there's no sink in this kitchen. Grandma would have had to get water from her well. And of course, a little towel to keep Grandma's hands clean, because Grandma was very good about washing her hands. I hope you all enjoyed getting to see the dollhouse again. We'll fill another room next time. Right now, I want to talk about how we can cook all kinds of food in the kitchen. But something that a lot of people seem to like is popcorn. Nowadays, most people seem to pop it into the microwave. But my family likes to make it the old-fashioned way, in a covered pot with some oil on the stove, just like Grandma would have made in her house. For this rhyme, we'll start out by going up and down on our tippy toes. Popcorn, popcorn, sizzling in the pot. Shake it up, pop, pop, pop. Popcorn, popcorn, now it's getting hot. Shake it up, pop, pop, pop.
I think you should do one more.
Okay. Popcorn, popcorn, he's sizzling in the pot. Shake it up, pop, pop, pop. Popcorn, popcorn, now it's getting hot. Shake it up, pop, pop, pop. If any of you have ever set a table, you know that everything has its place. Let me show you as if you were my guest. These are Mother's knives and forks. This is Father's table. This is my little looking glass. And here is Baby's cradle. That's all the time we have for today. Let's sing one last song to say goodbye to one another. Love somebody, yes I do. Love somebody, yes I do. Love somebody, yes I do. Love somebody, but I don't know who. Love somebody, yes I do. Love somebody, can't guess who. Love somebody, can't guess who. Love somebody, but I won't tell who. Love somebody, yes I do. Love somebody, yes I do. Love somebody, could be you. Love my community and love you too. Thanks for joining me at Penelope's Pitstop Storytime. See you soon, friends.